Everyone ready? If you got your notes out. Week 4 of Creation Science, Dinosaurs and Man in the Bible. Once again, we are studying this because 75% of evangelical kids who raised in evangelical homes, once they go to college after the first year, no longer believe the Bible is true. 92% of them believe it because creation science. And the Bible warns that there's going to be scoffers, and that probably the first 2.5, 3 pages of your notes are just a recap, once again, to let you know 2 Peter 3. How we finished last week talking about how the Bible talks about food. I hope everyone just didn't go home and say, man, we just talked about food tonight. How great was that? Some of it was about it, but it was about if we understand at the biblical and science level what is good for our bodies, right? The science level. I take this into my body. It's good for me. This is what happens. Oh, and the Bible said that too, long before you and I figured that out. But you and I, we know what to do, but we still scoff at it, correct? Come on, everybody. Don't we scoff? I mean, this is what scoffing is. We're willingly ignorant. We know what to eat and when to eat and how much to eat, but we still, come on. I do the same thing. So if we do that at the food level, this is why you need to understand scoffers about they're willingly ignorant to what? 2 Peter 3. Scoffers are going to scoff at you talking about Christ returning. They're in verse 4. They're going to say, hey, you've been talking about this for a long time. 2 Peter 3:5. They're willingly ignorant to God created the heavens and the earth. They can have the science for it. What I'm trying to tell you is don't get frustrated with people. Don't get frustrated. You just keep speaking the truth. Why? Because at some point we all started eating differently too, right? Like someone could tell you for 20 years, eat, and all of a sudden it finally clicks with somebody. So same thing here. So I'm saying expect it to happen. That's why Peter started out, he says, knowing this. You guys know that this is going to happen. Verse 5 again. That they're willingly overlook or ignorant. So remember that they're dumb on purpose, right? That God created everything, and also when he created the earth, it was formed out of the water and into the water. This is one of the verses that people just overlook, the back half of this. This is part of the flood. This sets up the flood. You guys remember the water? Remember in and out? That was that vapor barrier. This is what this passage is talking about. And it talks about it in the Old Testament as well. So it's setting up for verse 6. Whereby then the world became overflowed with water. Why? Because the water out of the earth was broken free and it poured down on the earth. So how long ago was the flood? 4,400 years ago. And we know that because of the Bible says so. It's genealogy. We just look it up. Just look at the lineage charts. There you go. The scoffers do not want to admit there's a flood because that means there could be what? Judgment. 2 Peter 3:7. The heavens and earth are now by the same word are kept in store. The same God who spoke it into existence are kept into place now. Nothing's going to happen. God's not going to, we can't do anything. You can use all the aerosol spray you want to. We can't do anything. You can mow your lawn on off days. It's not going to change anything. God's got everything in place. We think we can really do that. Don't use that piece. I'm not saying we go purposely destroy everything. I'm just telling you, God's got everything in control. By the same word, the present heavens and earth have been stored up for what? For fire, being kept until the day of judgment. They're willingly ignorant that God's coming to judge once again. They're willingly ignorant. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And where we left off last week, one of the last passages that we left off with is Isaiah 65:25. Because the world is going to be like it was before the flood again. Right? So the Bible said. The Bible said it's going to look like it did before the flood. That's what it's going to be like. Here we are right here. Isaiah 6:25. The lambs shall feed together, and the lion's going to lay down and eat straw. They're no longer, we looked at that last week, they're no longer going to eat meat. They're no longer going to do that. The dust shall be the serpent's food. They shall not hurt or destroy. Nothing's going to eat it. No animals, no living things are going to eat a living thing ever again. Eat all the steak you can right now. All right. So God is going to fix it back to what it was when it was perfect, when it was new. It's going to be that. So it's just going to happen. So 1 Corinthians 2:9. It is written, though, eye has not seen nor ear has heard, neither has entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for them that love him. We can't comprehend the lion laying down with the lamb. We can't comprehend what it's going to be like. We can't. And before we kind of get into the dinosaur thing, I wanted to finish this last week, but I just knew we wouldn't have time. But this is part of the eye has not seen nor ear has not heard. I want to just talk about, and don't get scared, electromagnetic spectrum. I bet you're excited right now, aren't you? Yes, electromagnetic spectrum, yes. Electromagnetic spectrum. It is a spectrum that contains different wavelengths. Right here. Radio waves, microwaves, X-rays, radar, sonar. Small piece in the middle is called light. Here is everything that's out there that can be seen by different things. Radio waves, gamma rays. Here's the whole gamut of things. Here we are. This is you and I in the middle. This is what we can see, and this is the blown up section of it, how your eye's curved here. But this right here is the colors that we see, right? That's what we can see. You guys remember going to art class, Roy G. Biv? You guys remember Roy G. Biv? What's Roy G. Biv? Red, orange, green. There you go. Roy G. Biv. You and I can see Roy G. Biv. There's been people who said they've passed away. And I know Don, my father-in-law, back when he had a quadruple bypass. This is back in 1989. Does that sound right, Gene? 1989. He said he felt his body lift, and he went away, and he saw colors like he never saw before. And that's not just him. That's just a lot of people. Some people feel heat like they never felt before. Don saw colors like he never saw before. So there's two different areas you can go. Okay. The basement's hot. Up top, you can, okay. So when he was in, he said he saw colors and things that he'd never seen before. Eye has not seen. Ear has not heard. It hasn't even entered what the things God has prepared for you. There's something more that's out there. Can you imagine all the different colors that are out there? You know, there's things when we get to heaven, and when it goes back to the way it used to be, when God made us perfect before sin entered in. Can you imagine how much shopping there's going to be in heaven? Janet, there's going to be reds that you're going to have to match shoes with. You're just going to go, I had no idea that was a red. I got to go, Betty, you're going to go shopping nonstop. You're going to be trying to match up this purple with this, and it's just going to be colors everywhere. Guys will probably just stick with angel white. I mean, we're just going to be simple. We're just going to stick with we're just going to go, I don't want to spend time doing that. Just angel white, let's just go, let's do it. But here's this I want to talk about is, it's just to get you excited about what heaven's going to be like, because we talked about how the earth was before the flood. How massive and big and strong, and the vegetation, and how it was created with this hyperbaric chamber and everything, the firmament was, and the water above the firmament. But imagine the sound waves, you're going to actually see sound coming off musical instruments. Because radio, you know that you can see, did you know that you can see waves? Because you can digitize waves. So there is a way to read them. There's something that's seen a vibration. Have you ever seen a vibration? Have you ever seen something and you can actually see it? Or glare, you can see heat. You can actually see heat rising off, or you can actually see things vibrate. Did you know that? Here, you're going to actually see, as a musical instrument puts out something, that's in that spectrum right there. And you're probably thinking, who cares? Who wants to see? I'm telling you, this This is how cool God made us. This is how great it was. Instead of able to hear at 20 to 40,000 cycles per second, you're going to be able to hear colors. Pastor Grant, what did you drink today? Okay. Your senses are going to be so alive. I'm just telling you guys, you be prepared. Don't delay. If you're not right with God tonight, I'm telling you, your mind, your eye has not seen or ear has not heard of what God has in store for you. Don't get caught up in what this world has to offer. Don't let with your current circumstances prevent you from doing what God has called you to do. Okay? I'm just telling you, I was so excited last week when I read that. It's like didn't want to get into this, but the full spectrum of what's out there, God has made us in such a way, and He's created all these things for us. So, okay, back to dinosaurs. Back to dinosaurs. We've gone through how the Bible teaches that the earth is only about 6,000 years old. You guys got your lineage charts, right? They're not billions of years old. In a couple of weeks, we're going to go over the Big Bang Theory. And I want to draw your attention to theory. Theory means it's what? Theory means, is it proven or not proven? Not proven. All right. We've talked about how dinosaurs lived with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. We talked about the hyperbaric trainer. We talked about the oxygen levels. We talked about how they were found in the ambers. This is part of normal creation. Now, God made the world about 6,000 years ago. 4,400 years ago, there was a flood came. The world was very, very different. Dinosaurs lived with Adam and Eve. They're not from millions of years ago. They were pre-flood lizards. There's no such thing as prehistoric. Why is that? Why is there no such thing as prehistoric animals? Because that means, pre means before, historic means history. Before there was history, there were animals. It doesn't make sense. What they're explaining is a whole other civilization in a world that was created before this earth was created, when they say prehistoric. Do you guys understand that? Now, dinosaurs on the ark. The obvious question, did Noah take dinosaurs on the ark? Do you guys think Noah took dinosaurs on the ark? Do you think he took dinosaurs on the ark? How many people think dinosaurs were on the ark? Come on. How many don't think they're on the ark? Huh, okay, all right. Dinosaurs. Why? The question is, I asked Kelly today. I said, you think there were dinosaurs on the ark? And I put it on. She goes, well, you think they're kind of big, aren't they? I said, the big ones were big, but the little ones were little. Right? There's big cows and there's little cows. Right? The T-Rex wasn't born 100 feet long. Right? The giraffe was not born 48 feet long. So, we're going to talk about this. All right. Genesis 6. I put it in the King James, whatever translation you got. You can read it if you don't want to read in the notes tonight. But Genesis 6:17. Behold, I, who's I? God, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth. Who wrote the book of Genesis? Who wrote the book of Genesis? Moses. Everyone in agreement with that? Okay, Moses. You can put that in your little notes too. Moses wrote this. Was Moses alive at the time of Noah? Was Moses alive at the time of Noah? You guys are probably going to look at your lineage charts right now. That's okay, because Moses isn't on there. All right. Was Moses alive at the time of Noah? No. No. Noah died about 300 years after the flood, which would have put it at about 1900. He died about 1900, 2000. And about 600-700 years later is when Moses was born. So behold, I bring the flood upon the waters to destroy all flesh, wherein that is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. Verse 18. But with thee, Noah, will I establish my covenant. What's a covenant? Promise, contract, covenant. in the Old and New Testament means a blood contract, blood covenant, in blood. That's the best type of contract you want. God made a covenant with you by Jesus' shedding of his blood. That's the best type of contract and covenant you're going to get. Remember in the little movies, the kids would always cut their thumbs and do the little blood thing? That meant they were serious. Handshake me, cut myself. It's a blood covenant. That was representing what was happening here. So Noah, thou shalt come into the ark, and your sons and your wife, and your sons' wives with these. And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every what? Sort. Sort, or kind. We'll talk about that in a second. 2 of every sort you're going to bring into the ark to keep them alive. You're going to bring a male and a female. That is key. Right? Okay. Noah, make sure you bring a male and a female. Blue and pink. All right. Of fowls after their kind. Of cattle after their kinds. Of every creeping thing in the earth after its kind. After its kind. Sort, kind. Shall come unto thee to keep them alive, and take thou thee unto all the food that is eaten, and shall gather it, and it shall be food for thee and for them. So Noah did this according to all that God commanded him, and he did it. Isn't it interesting when you do what God commands you? That's part of the covenant. God made a covenant with Noah, and then he laid out the contract. And then Noah did everything that was in the contract. If someone writes you a contract and you do everything in the contract, do you expect everything, the benefits of what the contract was written? If you don't do something based upon the contract that was given, you don't get all the benefits of what the contract. Sometimes you get no benefits. So Genesis 7:1, the story continues. So the Lord said unto Noah, come and all thy house into the ark, all your kids and wife, for thee I have seen righteous before me in this generation. I'm going to spare you because I see you as righteous. Uh-oh, it sounds like New Testament. God's going to spare us. 2 Thessalonians, right? It's called the rapture of the church. Because you have been righteous before me, I'm going to spare you from the judgment, right? Same thing. It's foreshadowed. The same thing's happening. So, verse 2, of every clean beast you're going to take thee by sevens. The male and his female, and the beast, they are not clean by 2, the male and his female. Of fowls, there's going to be sevens. You're going to take by sevens, male and the female, 7 pairs, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth for yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain. Remember, it never rained. I'm going to cause it. Well, let's back up. Verse 4 again. For yet 7 days. That means in 7 days, I'm going to cause it to rain. What happened in that 7 days? You guys remember what great piece of history biblically happened in those 7 days? There was a prophecy fulfilled in those 7 days. We studied that in end time prophecy. Anyone remember? Enoch had a son. What was his name? You can look on your chart if you want. Methuselah. At age 65, Enoch had a son. Methuselah. Methuselah lived how many years? 969 years. The prophecy before he had him, he said, at the time that the judgment would come, we read this, the time of the judgment would come, he would die. That's prophecy right out of the Bible. So he said, verse 4, for in 7 days I will cause to rain. When you look else in the Bible, during that 7 days, Methuselah died. That was prophecy. When Methuselah dies, it will rain. Enoch was promised you're going to have a son, and when that son dies, judgment would come. It's right in the Bible. This is, and that comes right from verse 4. So in this, he goes, you got 7 days. Why? Because Methuselah just died. This was a prophecy that they all knew for 600 years. Noah was how old when he started building the flood? When he started building the flood? 500 years old. He was 500 years old. So 500, he took 100 years to build it, 600 years old, and bam, Methuselah dies. It was prophesied he was going to die. Do you forget something? I forget something in 6 days. 600 years ago, hey, when Methuselah dies, judgment comes, there's going to be a flood. It was prophesied. This is so cool. So, I will cause it to rain upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and every living substance, does that say animal or substance? Substance that I have made will be destroyed off the face of the earth. And Noah did according, once again, he abided by the contract, the covenant. Noah was 600 when the flood waters came upon the earth. 600 years old. He was smart enough to figure out you don't have to breed the biggest ones on the ark. You garner much wisdom, 600 years. He just built an ark, him and 3 boys. Bigger than this building. I think they could figure some things out. Bring 2 babies, just make sure they're pink and blue. Don't need the big ones, bring the little ones. There are many reasons to bring babies. They're smaller, they eat less, they weigh less, they sleep more, they're tougher. Right? Are babies tougher? Mel, you're a new mom. But did you ever think you could take your son's legs and push them all the way back and touch the ground behind him, right? It's difficult when I drop a pen on the ground to bend over and get it. When you're young, you're very pliable, flexible, bulletproof. Things happen. Kids fall all the time. I fell out of trees. I fell off the roof, and nothing happened. My mom sat there. My mom was in more pain watching me fall off the roof than I was. I would just get up, and she goes, Maxwell, I can't. I go, oh, Mom, it's the 4th time today I did that. Come on. You just keep going. You just keep running. So adults fall down and break things. So Noah's using some smarts. Well, where does it say he took babies? I'm just walking through this right now with you, right? Common sense at some point has to kick in with us. Does God tell you tie your shoelaces before you go play sports? Common sense tells me tie my shoes before I go out. If I'm going an overnight bag and I'm taking a pair of underwear, a pair of shoes, shorts, socks, guess what? I don't take the biggest piece of luggage I got. I take the little bitty one. I take an overnight bag. I take it over here. So it makes common sense to bring smaller animals onto the ark. Now, species and kinds. You only have to bring 2 of each kind. 2 of each kind. God told him to bring 2 of every sort, not 2 of every species, or 2 of every variety. You can look up in the Hebrew. It's not a trick English. It's exactly what it was written. Bible says that he went on the ark at every kind, after his kind, after his kind. Just keep reading the Bible, every kind after kind. The phrase is over and over. The basic kind of animals went onto the ark. The basic kind of animals. Well, then how did we get all those animals? Did you know that I have, how many have siblings here? How many have identical looking siblings? But y'all came from the same parents. How does that work? My mom and dad had me, my brother Reed, Taja, and Carrie. We don't look alike. Well, how does that work? Do you think God programmed things in us? I mean, we all look human. I mean, we all look human, of course, but we look a little bit different. My sister actually has, I used to be blonde. Do you guys know that? I used to be really blonde. Anybody used to be blonde in here? Some of you ladies are, all right, so some of us used to be blonde and aren't blonde anymore, and Some of us had black hair and still have black hair or gray hair. Just we change. Your body changes. Things change. So things look different. So he said, bring 2 of every kind or every sort, not 2 of every species. There are 250 varieties of dogs. Well, actually almost 290. But established 250 varieties of dogs. Do you think Noah brought 250 pairs of dogs on the ark? Well, then how did we get all these varieties of dogs? How did we get them all? I think he brought 2 dogs. I don't think he brought 2 Great Danes. I don't think he brought 2 Chihuahuas. I don't think he brought 2 Shih Tzus. I don't think he brought 2 of this and 2 of that and 2 of that and 2 of that. Can you imagine that kennel? That's a mess. Hey, Shem, time to clean up the dog pound. I mean, it's just like, that's just dogs. The ark wasn't even big enough for the species of dogs. So it makes sense because the Bible says only take sorts or kinds. You guys all know what I'm saying? So the reason I'm telling you this is, one, for you to understand it, but you're supposed to be talking with people who says, it's impossible. I believe in the evolutionary theory. I believe in evolution. Well, it's impossible, and we're going to go to this in a second. So the Bible teaches that, and science now, that God made the world 6,000 years ago, and 4,400 years ago there was a flood destroyed by the world, and Noah built the ark and saved the animals on board. Since the flood's been over, there's been a lot of varieties produced based on pressures in the environment. Produced long hair, short hair, but it's just variations of dogs. You can crossbreed dogs. You put a blonde-haired person together and a black-haired person together, guess what? You don't know what you're going to get. Right? You put a short person together and a tall person together. Hey, you take after... And all of a sudden you start having variety within inside kinds. Not different species of tall people. Tall people aren't species. They're a kind of person. Tall people. It's a sort of person. He's a funny sort, right? He's not a species of funny. He's funny. So there's different types of people within the same kind. This is what they're talking about. And like I said, in the weeks to come, we're going to go over micro and macro evolution. I want you to be able to intelligibly talk to people about this. Evolutionists believe, most of them believe, a lot of them don't know what they believe, but this is the general theory. 20 billion years ago, there was a Big Bang, which we'll talk about in 3 weeks. But they don't know what exploded because there was nothing there. You understand the Big Bang theory? There was nothing. But then an explosion came, and from the explosion came something. Then about 4.6 billion years ago, out of that bang there was the earth, and the earth cooled down and developed a hard rocky crust. This is just right off the evolutionary track. It rained on the earth's rocks for millions of years and turned them into soup. This is high school and college creation science. And I took 2 quotes out of them. As the earth, this is quotes right out of a high school textbook. As the earth formed, the surface was hot and there were large pools of bubbling lava. It rained on the rocks for millions of years and it formed oceans. Millions of years of torrential rains created great oceans. The swirling in the oceans was dissolved rocks, which came to be known as the soup. Now, so this, guys, this is just basic. When you're talking to someone who doesn't believe in God, they believe in evolution. There's a lot of smart people who believe in evolution. They have PhDs, 10 PhDs, and you're talking that. So billions years ago, my great-great-great-grandfather, this is him. I'm not being funny. This is what they believe. And this is G-Ma, Grandma. It just kept raining. It just kept raining. And it rained and rained. And millions of years, it just kept raining on these rocks. And from these rocks, Grandma and Grandpa sprung out of these things. This is evolutionary theory. when you look at it, see, when you read a textbook, it's one thing, but when you actually look at it and go, so these two got together and had these little Rockies, these little babies. This is where very smart people who are willingly ignorant, who you and I have to witness to, because Jesus is coming. And you have to know this, what's going on, because this is what they believe. Now well, no, I don't really believe that. Then what do you believe? You either came from this or you came from there. That's the only two options out there that people will discuss. So the swirling of the waters of the oceans are a bubbling broth of complex chemicals. Is what they're talking about. So the swirling out there, because all these rocks went into these waters, and these complex chemicals started swirling around, kind of like making a cake. Right? I made Jell-O the other night. Not as complex, but I made Jell-O. You guys ever make Jell-O? It's been a long time probably, haven't you? You guys don't like Jell-O? Tastes like Kool-Aid, but different texture. Okay, so you get hot boiling water, and then you pour in the Jell-O packet, and you stir. And it starts to change color, and it starts dissolving. Then I pour fruit in there, and it just starts. This is what was happening. It was a complex chemical soup, an organism. And it says it was very slow, and it took millions and millions of years to develop. Matter of fact, it's so slow it actually stopped. That's how slow it is. And nothing comes out of this anymore. No one's actually ever seen this turned into anything. So this complex chemical composition that just stirs and stirs and stirs and stirs, and then life springs forth out of this. It's never been seen. Actually, it's never been seen. I can take an egg, I can take powder, I can take all this stuff, I can stir, I can put it in a cake. I know exactly where it came from. I can taste it if you forgot the sugar. If you put too much salt in, too much flour, you forgot to you can do that. You can't say this about this. Oh yeah, this looks like my Uncle Fred. So you can see right here, this is, it's impossible. So the evolutionary theory is that the very early life formed out of soup made from rocks. And then the two rocks just found each other to marry. It was just a coincidence that they got the right parts together from the chemical compounds that swirled together, and they found each other. This is what they believe. This is what they believe. This is what you're coming up against. So this is a question you'll get from an evolutionist. If you want to debate an evolutionist, there are 250 varieties of dog in the world, so you think that all dogs came from just 2 dogs off Noah's Ark. That's what they're going to ask you. So you're telling me all dogs came from 2 dogs. Your response, you believe all dogs came from this. The evolutionary theory is all dogs came from these 2. You're saying, I believe all dogs came from dogs. They believe all dogs came from this. That's the evolutionary theory. This is what you're just... Carry rocks around in your car. It's just a great illustration. And it's fun to play with, too. Okay, so you can just have that. Y'all get this? I was just trying to cut... So the flood legends, these are flood legends. I don't believe in a flood. Why are we talking about the flood? Because 2 Peter 3 says that they won't believe in the flood. So it's a big sticking point for people in regards to see Christ. If there was a worldwide flood, do you think survivors would tell their grandkids? That's a question. Do you think people would tell? Right? I go home and I find out, Kelly and I work together, and we tell each other what we did during the day, and we work together. So if a flood happened, I think I would tell my grandkids. It was crazy. We were in the ark for, how long were they in the ark for? Does anybody remember? Oh, we'll talk about it in a second. It was longer than you think. It's logical that there be some flood legends. When things happen, there are legends about them. In China, for instance, there's over 290 flood legends. You know that? little varieties and variations on them, but in China, they have a legend about a family. It's a classical high king is about the family Fui, which the Chinese considered the father of their civilization. History records that his wife and 3 sons and 3 daughters escaped the great flood. He and his family were the only people alive on earth. And after the great flood, they populated the whole world. You know that's a legend in China? In Mexico, the Toltec Indians have a legend that the earth, or that the flood, created in 1760 years, and that everything was created, and the flood happened in 1716 years after everything was created. Bible teaches 1656. Why would there be so many flood legends if there wasn't a legend? Okay, an atheist, this is when an atheist will respond. An atheist will say, well, if there was a flood, why aren't there any legends about it? Well, there's almost 300 legends. If it happened, someone should have been talking about it. All throughout history, there are legends on floods. You guys hear a legend about a flood? You know why? You grew up in a school system that doesn't want you to believe in creation. We all grew up in a school system that has been taught that we come from 2 hunks of granite. So, where is the ark? You ever wondered that? It seems like every 6 months somebody found the ark, right? Hey, I found it. In New Jersey? How? I mean, really? I mean, just Genesis 7:17. Where's the ark? As people ask you, well, I think the ark is here. Well, I heard the ark. Now, there's no such thing. Okay. This is some good information for you guys in understanding the Bible. And the flood was 40 days upon the earth. So they got in the boat at 600 years old. The earth was 600 years. The flood was about 40 days. I'm sorry, he was 600 years when he went into the flood. The flood was 40 days. The flood, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, right? That's what he said. I'm going to make it rain for 40 days and 40 nights. If you grew up in church, the little flannel board, 40 days and 40. Everyone quotes that. How long were they in the ark? 40 days and 40 nights. It's exactly. You know when it floods down here, does it instantly go away? Streets stay there for a while, right? It's just, and we live in sand. And it takes a while for it to dissipate. So the waters increased and bare up the ark, and it was lifted up above the earth. So the ark was sitting there on the ground. They closed it up, and the waters prevailed and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went upon the face of the waters. The waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills. Well, it's just hills. Okay, so there's not a lot of water. All the hills that were under the heaven were covered. Verse 20, 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. 15 cubits. Back in that day, 25 to 28 inches was considered a cubit, so roughly 31 feet above the top of a mountain was the water. Not 31 feet deep across the earth. 31 feet above the tip of the tallest mountain. Where did all that water come from? Where did all that water come from? From the waters down below. It burst forth, right? There's a thing underneath the ocean. There's a, what's that called? There's a line. There's a long line that it looks like something burst forth out of the bottom of the ocean. You guys know what that's called? Anybody? There's like plates in the ocean. Fault lines? You guys, there's some things underneath the ocean floor where they said water actually burst forth. And it's still bursting forth right now. So you have waters from below coming forth, and the waters above the firmament. The firmament's the first heaven where the birds fly, right? We read that in Genesis 1. So you have waters being poured down, and it went 31 feet above the top of the mountain. That's why you find, 2 weeks ago, shark's teeth at the top of a mountain. Right? Shark's teeth on top of mountains. How did they get up there? Well, they had walking sharks back then. No. They had really adventurous sharks. They just climbed all over the place. No, there was a flood. Verse 21, and all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and cattle and the beasts and every creeping thing that creeped on the earth. Notice it didn't say fish. I've had someone ask me that before. Fish are in water, and it flooded. Okay, everyone? Okay, I just want to make sure. Verse 22, all with nostrils with breath of life, all that was in the dry land died. Every living substance now was destroyed. Substance, what they ate, how they took care of themselves, was destroyed. Both men, cattle, and creeping things, and the fowl of the heaven, they were destroyed from the earth, and Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth for how long? So were they on the ark 150 days? That's just how long the waters were prevailing. So you have 40 days of rain, 150 days is just water everywhere. So 190 divided by 30 is, you got a little over 6 months at this point. 6 months with all sorts and kinds of animals. Genesis 8. God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark, and God made a wind to pass over them. It wasn't to take the scent out of the boat. Okay. So, I used to read this differently as a child. Okay. God made a wind to pass over the boat, and the waters so gently subsided or went down slowly. They went down slowly. The fountains also of the deep, there we go, and the windows of heavens were stopped. These are the fountains down below at the bottom of the ocean floor. And the rain from heaven, so there was rain coming from the windows of heaven above the firmament. There was also rain. You guys see all this? I mean, there's rain, there's water coming from everywhere. And the waters returned from off the earth continually, and after the end of the 150 days, the waters abated, subsided. The ark rested in the 7th month, 210 days plus 40, 250 days later. On the 17th day of the month, don't you love that? They put the day. Upon the mountains, plural, the mountains, there are mountains of Ararat, and the waters decreased continually until the what month? 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, were the top. Do you think honestly, if someone said, listen, I want you to build a boat, and you're going to have to hang there with all the animals for 10 months. God, get somebody else. Oh, what? You want to be protected? You want a covenant with me? There's parallels that he's drawing right now with New Testament. God, come on, why do I have to do this for? Do you want covenant with me? Do you want to be protected with me? How much longer do I have to wait, though? I mean, go sit on the ark for 10 months. We complain if we wait 10 days for something, for a promise from God. He's at the 10-month mark right now. It came to pass, verses 6, at the end of 40 days that Noah opened it. Now there's another 40 days after the 10th month, the windows of the ark which he had made, and he sent forth a raven, which went forth to and fro, and he sent forth a dove in verse 8 to the waters. In verse 9, the dove found no rest for the sole of her feet. Verse 10, and he stayed yet another 7 days. Verse 11, the dove came to him in the evening, and lo, there's an olive leaf plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated, subsided from off the earth. He stayed yet another 7 days and sent forth the dove. And it came to pass in the 601st year. How old is Noah when he went into the ark? 600. Now 1 year and 1 month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried up off the earth. Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. And in the 2nd month, he still didn't get off the ark. Have you ever thought, this is my God, this is my open door. This is when I'm supposed to do this. This is you've made this door. Do you know that Noah didn't move until God told him to? He trusted God this long. But then all of a sudden, he'd been cooped up and he'd been going through this terrible ordeal. He saw an open, hey, it's dry outside, and the dove came back and guess, I'm out of here. And he goes, nope. He waited another month. And then the second month, on the 7th and 20th day of the month, when the earth was dried, then God spoke. I love that. He didn't do anything without God telling him what to do. I wouldn't either if I was floating around with an ark with all these animals and the earth was completely flooded. God, I trust you now. Oh boy, did I trust you. Go forth now out of the ark. Now, if you look at the map, did you guys ever know that? He was on it for almost 14 months. Isn't that interesting? He was on that ark. That was only 40 days, big deal. I could do anything for 40 days. You tried 13 months. If you look at the map of Turkey, right here is Turkey, and there's Mount Ararat, and there's mountains around this region right here. It butts right up to Iran. There's a Turkish map. It's called Nu Gimsi, which means Noah's big boat. The Bible does not say the ark landed on Mount Ararat. That's why I highlighted it in your notes. But the mountains are around Mount Ararat. That doesn't mean it's not on Mount Ararat. It just means it's on the mountains around there. So when these groups go out and say, I found Noah's ark because I'm on Mount Ararat, that doesn't mean, he just says on the mountain regions around Ararat. Whether or not they find the ark or not, this is not the big deal. I'm not trying to split hairs here. I'm just trying to just go through what the Word says. So when someone says, no, the Bible says this. Well, no, it says in the mountains of Ararat. The Bible says the ark rested in the 7th month, and Noah didn't get out until the 13th month. Why did he do that? One thing, there's nothing to eat. The earth was just flooded. Have you ever planted a garden? You put the seed in the ground, you water it, and the next day there's like a carrot, right? What kind of garden do you guys do? It takes a couple months for something to come out of the ground. Depends on what you're planting. There was nothing to eat. The water hadn't gone down. He was stuck. The thing was at the top of a mountain. The design of the ark. The design of the ark. The anchor stones. They have found 12 anchor stones around Mount Ararat. Here's what an anchor stone is. This is one of the 12 anchor stones. It doesn't look that big right now, but that thing's 11 feet tall, and it's sunk 4 feet in the ground. 11 feet tall, and it's an additional 4 feet underground. And there's a hole drilled at the top. There's a close-up of the hole drilled at the top. See right there? There's a hole drilled. There you go again. That was drilled in the middle of these stones. I built about 130 homes. I've drilled through rock. Jim, you've probably done this too, and Scott, rock, concrete. About 4,400 years ago, I have no idea how you would drill through that rock and make that circular hole through there that perfect. I don't know how they did it. But apparently what they used, and this is proven in history, that they use these, they're called anchor stones. They put the bigger rope through the bigger stones to hold the rock hanging over the side of the boat, or a drag stone or drug stone. And this is what this does. So you have an ark that's getting ravaged, right? These stones hang down, they're tied, and they keep the boat from rocking. It's like it's a mid-anchor. You guys know what I'm talking about? It keeps the heaviness, so the boat is just kind of tugged down, so it's not rocking as much, it's not getting tipped over. They found 12 of these, which they said would be needed for a boat that size. It just happens to be in Mount Ararat. They have no idea how something weighing 9,000 pounds each. Do you think they were big back then, people? Remember we talked about that 2 weeks ago? 18-foot people. So him and a couple of his sons got together, and maybe they grabbed a couple dinosaurs, right? Yanked some stones over and put it next to the. I mean, it's just awesome. You start looking at what science and what's already seen, what's already shown. You use these rocks to create drag. Now, an evolutionist will say, if you have rocks hanging down over the side of a boat, wouldn't that slow you down? Noah wasn't going anywhere. Noah wasn't like trying to go to his buddy's house. He wasn't saying, hey, I got the weekend off, let's go. It's like, He was just trying to stay afloat for however long he was supposed to stay afloat. He had no idea. Did you know that God didn't tell him up front, by the way, it's going to be 13 and a half months. But somehow he had enough food. He had no idea what he was supposed to. So I think he had little bitty animals. I think he listened to God. And he was so. Moon pool, evolutionists, these are sailors now who are evolutionists. They say you can't build a boat that big. It will go over when waves hit it. It will bend and flex and eventually break. You guys know what a moon pool is? Anybody know what a moon pool is? That is not when you swim in your pool when the moon's outside. Okay, a moon pool. A moon pool is a shaft cylinder going upside, and they use it right now in diving boats. They use it in oil rigging. They use it. It is a shaft it's an open hole into the bottom of the boat going all the way up, and it allows water to come in and out, and it allows it actually is taking in water, and it helps stabilize the ship and helps it from not breaking. So you just learned something right now. Don't go home if you go on a boat this weekend. When you're in the water, do not drill a moon pool while you're in the boat. It is a totally different thing. It's a hermetically sealed thing inside of the. Okay, all right, you understand that? So they believe that the moon pool was created for this wooden boat. What happened then to the dinosaurs? After the flood was over, what happened to the dinosaurs? Textbooks tell you at a meteor struck the Yucatan Peninsula in 65 million BC and made the dinosaurs extinct. So what made the dinosaurs go extinct, and are they extinct? After the flood, two things happened to the dinosaurs. After the flood, two things happened to the dinosaurs. One, there was a different environment. Okay, that's week 1 and week 2, right? What's the different environment caused by? What happened? The rains came down from the firmament, correct? Right? It broke the hermetically sealed, and what else? And as a result of that, the oxygen level, and then what was protecting them? The gamma rays, X-rays, right? So the sun's beating down. So the Bible said there was the firmament's the first heaven, correct? There was waters on the earth, and here's the firmament, and above that, canopy, water canopy. That water canopy, when the flood happened, the Bible says that canopy, and which scientists can prove, right around about 10 miles up, all around the earth, there's still that H2O level where there's frozen water still exists all around the earth. So the different environment was caused by when the flood happened, the waters from up above burst down. So now you have a different pre-flood environment as opposed to a post-flood. You guys got your charts, right? You can look right on your charts to see in the Bible, people lived 900 years plus before the flood, correct? Right after the flood, it went to 400 to 200 to 120 to 100. Now the Bible says it's good for a guy to live 70 years. That kind of blows the evolutionary theory out of the water. Evolutionary theory says we keep getting better, keep getting better. So the canopy of water was gone. I'm going kind of quick right now because we just did this. Radiation was getting in. Air pressure was less oxygen. So dinosaurs dying off because of the climate was changing, which they were exposed to, and God said it changed. Another thing was the plight of the dinosaur. What happened? Man was now hunting, right? What's one of the first things that he said in Genesis 9? What did God say that Noah could do? You could eat meat. Before the flood, you couldn't eat meat. Animals couldn't eat. Remember we talked about the mosquitoes. Mosquitoes couldn't bite man because they couldn't eat off flesh. Couldn't eat it. How cool is that? You know, I had someone, like I said, this is years ago, I debated this with somebody. They said, that doesn't make any sense. Of course a mosquito, that's how they survive. They have to bite you. I said, do you believe you're going to heaven? And they said, yes, I do. I said, what happens? He says, well, the rapture comes, and I'm going to fly up in the sky, and I'm going to be with Jesus. I go, where's that? He goes, I don't know, in a cloud somewhere, and I'm going to be doing this. And I go, and you don't think a mosquito could not bite you? This is what it was. This is all pre-flood stuff. So the plight of the dinosaurs. Man started hunting right in Genesis 9. The second they got off the ark, the first thing he said to Noah was, take dominion, multiply, be fruitful, and you can, isn't that interesting? He added, you can start eating meat. So why do you think big animals started dying off? Right? You kill one dinosaur, you can feed a family of 47 for a while. How do I know that? Because we know that they ate dinosaurs. You know, dinosaurs were meaty. We have the skeletal system to find out. You look at a cow's skeletal system, hey, that was a big cow, but there's a lot of meat on that cow. There's a lot of meat. You can have a little bacon bronchiosaurus cheeseburger. I mean, they had a lot of stuff. So the population, as the population, according to Genesis 9, be fruitful, multiply, take dominion over everything of the earth, right? The population became bigger. Ferocious animals began to diminish. Same thing happened in Florida. Grizzly bears in West Florida. Used to be a lot, now there's none. You know that everywhere man has gone, large animals get diminished? That's why they have to have protection on them. It's not just to eat. We like to kill stuff. Can you imagine coming home and you guys got a T-Rex head and hey, look what I got today. Got a T-Rex. Oh, that's nothing. I got 2 bronchiosaurus. I mean, this is so, but the Bible said you could hunt these now. Before you couldn't hunt. So as the population of the world began to grow, dinosaurs began to be killed off, not just because of that, but because of the hyperbaric chamber was now released because of the heavens below, above, and the suns. So dragon tails, we're not going to have time. It's, oh boy, it's 4 minutes left. Okay. You guys can read. We're going to talk about next week. We're going to get into, for time's sake, you guys got the notes. I was very specific on several examples in science and in history, but we're going to look at the Bible next week and dinosaurs in the Bible. Dinosaurs in the Bible. Dinosaurs in the Bible. Last week we talked about the Ickastones. We talked about Peru and the state park in Texas where man walked with dinosaurs. I want you, like I said, when you read these pages, I think they're in your notes, like I said, pages 19 through probably 22, you're going to see some things from in Babylon when Saddam Hussein was king, when he was taken out by the military, but the 20 years prior to that, that he was in power. When they started rebuilding, you know that the Bible says that Babylon was supposed to be rebuilt? Did you know that scoffers, before it was rebuilt, said, see, the Bible was wrong. It's demolished. But it was rebuilt by Saddam Hussein. During the excavation and reconstruction of all the artifacts found in, where's Babylon at? What country? What country? Iraq. In Iraq, they found all the carvings of dinosaurs all throughout, all the artifacts within Iraq. There's dinosaurs sketched and etched everywhere throughout the artifacts inside Iraq. So you're going to see, we're going to go through that. I have pictures for all this, the actual artifacts. You're going to see, we're going to go back to the Vikings in 1570s. You're going to see in history books, I'm going to pull up some history books from high school and college that you want to use anymore. But actually, they had people back in the day, they raced dinosaurs, right? And they actually describe them, and they have etchings for them as well. Like I said, this is science. This isn't mythology. We're going to go right through it. So, but before you, I wanted to draw your attention before we take offering tonight. Job chapter 38. Just go there in your Bibles real quick. Job chapter 38. And we've got 2 minutes left. So next week we're going to start with Job and go through dinosaurs in the Bible. And once again, science is proving the Bible's true. Science proves the Bible. Did you guys learn anything tonight? Dinosaurs lived with man, and Noah took them in the ark. And now we're going to read the book of Job, chapter 38. I would like for you if you have time this week, well, I mean, you should have time to read your Bible at least once, okay? You got 7 days to read your Bible one time. Okay, the story of Job, right? Everything was stripped away from him. He's dying. Everything's done. His kids died. His wife tells him he's a loser. All his friends tell him he's a loser. You guys know what I'm talking about? That's the message. Okay, so the heart, in chapter 38, and I paraphrased in here, so I just want to draw your attention to these things. It's in italics in your notes. Chapter 38. The Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is it that darkeneth counsel by word without knowledge? Gird up now your loins like a man's pride, will defend on thee and answer thou me. Where was thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? No, Job is sitting there. His life is miserable, right? Did you know that he was ignorant to what was going on with him according to Job chapter 1? Wasn't he ignorant to what was going on? He had no idea that God wasn't saying this. So finally, 38 chapters into Job saying, this is crazy, this is terrible, my friends tell me to curse God and die. So finally God says, guess what? Tell me, Job, where were you when I laid down the foundations of the earth? If you know everything, have you ever said that to your kids? If your kids aren't old enough, I love saying it to Zach and Paige now. When they get smart with me, I go, fine, tell me, Zach, how would you fix the car? Well, Paige, tell me, what would you do in this situation? What do you think? Dad, why is that? Tell me, Paige, how would you handle this? Did it ever, oh, this is so good, I want to read this to you guys. Why would God ask him anything like that? Did it even occur to Job or you and I that God is stronger, that God is smarter, that God has everything and we have nothing? Did it occur that when you and I tried to figure out why God does things and how the earth was created, did it ever occur to you that nothing ever occurs to God? Think about that when you get home. I thought that was funny. Okay, did it occur to you that nothing ever occurs to God? God always knows. He's always in a moment of occurring. He already knows it all. Things pop into our head later. We get revelations sometimes 10, 15, 20 years later. But when God, He knows everything. So the Lord said, Job, where were you when I laid down the foundations of the earth? Tell me your understanding when I laid down the measures. Tell me when I figured everything out. Where were you? God said, have you entered into the springs of the sea? Did you know that springs of the sea were not found until 1977? God told Job thousands of years ago that there were springs in the base of the sea. In 1977, they found springs of the sea. I think there was dinosaurs. I think there was a flood 4,400 years ago. The Lord said, Job, where is the way where light dwells? Where is it where light comes from? The light, this is so great. I mean, God said, the light parted which scattereth the east wind upon the earth. The light parted the east wind upon the earth. The light caused the wind. You guys see what he's speaking to him? The weatherman didn't even know about that until 150 years ago, that light affects wind. This is stuff that was quoted in science. Now, and the reason I'm bringing this to your attention is because dinosaurs are mentioned in the book of Job and some other places. He's asking Job, you're figuring all this out. Well, what about this? So light causes the wind. Sunlight heats up an area, makes it, so you guys got those? Sunlight heats up an area, makes it expand. Hot air rises, expands, creates a wind current. Did you know that? That's how it comes from. That's where wind comes from. Low pressure, high pressure. So where does wind come from? Light. God said this. We just figured that out 150 years ago. He said it thousands of years ago.